Hello again, lovely people. So I'm back here today with the next video podcast on my request list. Now, this is another video where somebody's requested a video from my influential people series. And they've asked for certain people that are of interest to them. Now, as you know, I don't do any pre-research because I like the numbers to say, to speak, and if I know too much context, I might put too much of what I know into it. But there is a little bit I know about this person. Now, this is Abraham Lincoln. I know he was the 16th president of the United States, and he was as far as I can tell, although we didn't really learn about it in school in the UK, he was a very influential man, and he brought great change. In fact, he was the sort of man that went against the grain a little bit. Whatever was there that he didn't like, he changed it, and he was quite rebellious in his communication. And then, as I was researching his full birth name and date of birth and looking at creating his video, I thought, oh my God, this is familiar. He has almost, not totally, because we're all individual. It's very unlikely that we'll all have exactly the same number chart, but I've never seen a similarity like it. Charles Robert Darwin and Abraham Lincoln's numerology profile are pretty much running side by side with some subtle differences. And I couldn't believe the similarity. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute. If Abraham brought some change, I know he was very influential when it came to keeping the Union of the United States, and he was very influential in abolishing slavery and, being rebellious, changing what he didn't agree with. And Charles Darwin was the same. He communicated, I guess, with speeches with his evolution theory, but he wrote books. So, when you communicate, you can do it verbally on a podium, you can do it by books, or you can do it by all of them. But they did lead quite a similar life. They went down different trajectories, but they both brought ideas that caused issues, whether it be the war in the Union. And I'm not saying Abraham Lincoln caused that, of course not, but it was ideas that created conflict, okay? And it would have created conflict with the slave abolitionists and the anti-people that wanted slavery to remain. That would have caused a bit of uproar and fundamentally brought about change. And Darwin did the same thing. And I thought, these two people are very similar. They were born on the same day. Their names give you the same expression number. And as you're going to see when I show you Abraham Lincoln's number, there's only subtle differences in their charts. And of course, I found this fascinating. So I had to do a little peek, even though I don't normally, but I'm going to tell you, I did a little bit of a search on Abraham Lincoln and Charles Darwin, and it has been picked up that they were born on similar days and that there are certain similarities and, of course, differences. I didn't look into all those similarities and differences because that's too much influence, So I use the information I've already got, which is just who he was and what he did, and the fact that I've had a little sneak peek online to see who else has commented on any similarities between Abraham Lincoln and Charles Robert Darwin. And there has been some sniffs, similar to what I was already thinking about what they did in life that was sort of similar, sort of rebellious and bringing change. It's similar in nature in that way, but less different in its specifics. And they were born on the same day and similar name numbers. Anyway, I'm going to stop gabbling and I'm going to show you. So Abraham Lincoln's chart. So Charles Robert Darwin is a 145 karmic debt. And that was all about focus on a mastery and communicating that mastery to as many people as possible. So where Charles Darwin communicated his theory of evolution and cast doubt over, ideas about religion, and Abraham Lincoln did not had the same theories as Darwin, I think. They thought in the same way when it came to their belief in religion or lack of. So they were both similar in that way, but they both communicated in order to bring change, to bring ideas. They brought rebellious ideas. Abraham Lincoln was, he kept the Union together, and fundamentally the status quo that was slavery, he challenged that and tried to bring change in that situation, just like Darwin challenged religion directly, really, by bringing in theories that were not really something religious people or the system itself was ready to accept, which is going to create certain amounts of conflict. So they did lead similar big picture paths. But as I say, when I do a reading, I give you the big picture. The specifics is up to you to decide how you're going to express that. How will you communicate? Will you do it verbally on a podium? Will you do it in books? Or will you do both? There's many ways to communicate. Or will you use your art to communicate to others? So many ways. Anyway, so they both had the 145 life path. They were both born on the same day. So, of course, they both got the same birthday number, 123. Then they've got the same expression number, 156. And the only difference is as Abraham Lincoln has got a soul urge 9, and Charles Robert Darwin was a 189. So there's a little bit of differences in what they wanted. In fact, the main number was the same. They wanted to be 9s in their energy, but Darwin was more maybe businesslike about it, more 189. Maturity, Master 11, both the same. So they both had, they developed the talent over the years to bring new ideas and bring change to the world. And it was from about their, as per numerology, it was from about their mid-30s to 40s onwards where their Master 11 really took effect, and they were bringing all these new ideas. And it goes really, because both of them brought new ideas and brought change that it was a new idea. Now, there's a noise outside my window right now, and I really hope this isn't coming through the recording. And of course, if it is coming through the recording, I will have to stop this video. So I'm going to carry on for now and hope it doesn't ruin the video and that my microphone isn't picking up that noise. So, personality number, both are 6, but Darwin was a master 33-6. So more performance orientated, maybe that's what pushed him more towards writing the books. And he was more able to take the accolades of audiences, whereas Abraham Lincoln's personality would have been shyer, but it didn't mean he couldn't cope with audiences. It was just slightly different in the way it expressed. Intensifiers. So Abraham Lincoln had a strong 3 intensifier. So really good on the stage, good at talking to people, even though he had that shy personality number. He was good at talking to people because he'd been that before. It was an intensifier of his from a previous life. But his 2 and his 9... but for Darwin it was the 2 and the 9. It was the developing the relationships and the 9 energy. So they had differences there. So Abraham Lincoln was more about the stage, and Darwin in his past was more about healing others and being an influencer. But, their chart, as you can see, I've never seen 2 charts so scarily similar. Abraham Lincoln had 2 karmic numbers, the 5 and the 9, which is about ethical communication, which I think he did a good job to sort out in his lifetime. And of course, Charles Robert Darwin had no low karmic numbers. So there are some slight differences. But, in the way they lived their life and the way they expressed themselves in many ways, in a big picture sort of sense, they did lead similar lives where they had a mastery that they focused on, a subject, a concept that they focused on, and they almost became, they developed that into something that they then communicated to others. And they both had the life path which was all about committing. And boy, did these two men both commit. Abraham Lincoln committed to bringing the Union together, and he was successful. He was very instrumental in the abolition of slavery. He wasn't backwards in coming forwards at bringing change. So two very similar men, but used slightly different mediums and went down different pathways when it came to the status quo in the world. They were change agents, really, like a five often is, because they communicate new ideas and they're a bit rebellious about it. So the tasks of the energy of the five is to learn from varied experience what your passion and your mastery is. So this is Abraham Lincoln. And his path was to find that mastery and have the self-discipline to develop that mastery, to attain personal freedom. And I know he was all about the abolition of slaves, but personal freedom was actually his first concern, or should have been. And develop charismatic verbal and written and communication skills. Now, I've never seen a speech by Abraham Lincoln, but the fact that he was so influential does make me feel that maybe he was quite good at communicating to the masses. But he had some quite, strong ideas to bring, which would have fired up a lot of people. So Abraham Lincoln was here to indulge in varied experience, look at the world with the eyes of a child and learn from each one to help him choose his passion and focus. Now, I assume his life and the way, he experienced the world gave him certain ideas that he didn't like, that he wanted to change. But he would have been, if he hadn't have found those ideas, he would have gone through life being easily bored, brushing over experiences, not really focusing on any one thing. And without those ideas, he would have struggled to progress at all. So even though the ideas, the slavery especially, that he wanted to change wasn't so, great, and it was good that he wanted to change that, if he hadn't have had that idea, he kind of needed an idea like that to help him push himself forward. And it sort of shows again how this world that we live in really has to be light and dark. It's got to be 50-50, nightmare and good, or positive and negative, because we've got to learn. We've got to look at what's bad and we've got to try and make it better. That's learning. That's like being given a school problem and having to sort it out. If we were all living in a utopian state, nothing would ever change and nobody would ever learn anything. So, you can sort of think that these ideas, these horrible ideas where people were kept in bonds of slavery, it created an opportunity for someone who is a five, like religion did for Darwin, the status quo did for Darwin, for a five to propel the rebellious ideas that bring change. And that's what Abraham Lincoln did. He was here to balance variety, change and adventure, but focus on also and be able to balance that with his passion and his mastery and, of course, his family. Because I haven't really looked into him, but I guess he was married and had children. So he had to find that balance too between his own need for fun and adventure, his focus on his ideas for anti-slavery and bringing the Union together, and, being able to look after his family. Now, I don't know how he managed that balance because I don't know enough about him. But of course, he may have struggled to find that healthy balance between the need for adventure and his focus on his mastery and needing, well, he was the president, so there's going to be an imbalance in some ways. And I would imagine sometimes his family didn't see him as much as they could have done. But again, I'm making assumptions here. So he was here to find his passion and his focus. And like I said, those ideas gave him his passion and his focus and his discipline to attain progression in that area and to attain freedom for himself and I guess for others around him also, because fives are all about being fearless and helping others to be fearless too. So, by, helping these people to get rid of slavery, he was helping to bring them freedom as well as his own personal freedom. But, what fives also need to learn is they're quite rebellious and sometimes they will say, I'll do what I want. But what they need to keep in mind as well is, is freedom going to be attained by doing everything you want? Definitely not, because if I did what I wanted, I'd be quite a few stone heavier and quite a lot lazier than I am. You know, we can't always do what we want to do because what do we know about what we want? You know, so you know, it's about freedom, it's about discipline, and you know, it's you've got to find that discipline before you can attain that real personal freedom. And that's the same for Darwin and Abraham Lincoln. You're here to learn, Mr. Abraham Lincoln, balanced, healthy commitment and dependability, and more so because you're a 145. Commitment was essential, and those ideas gave him that commitment. And of course, being, you know, getting to the point where he was the, you know, the president of the United States, that takes top-notch commitment. So well done there, Abraham Lincoln. Very committed and, you know, successful in a lot of his endeavours. He could have been chaotic and uncommitted, forgetful, or overcommitted and obsessed, and he could have been if he didn't have those ideas to focus on. What if the world was utopian? He wouldn't have had any ideas or anything to really get his teeth into in order to bring that change that he is here to bring. So, you know, that's something to think on. And as I said, he's here to learn fast, act fearlessly, and not let others stop him from taking the steps that he knows intuitively was the right steps, to surge forward bravely. And that's exactly what he did. And, you know, conflict was around him. And of course, eventually he did pay the price. I hear that he was assassinated 1865. I don't know, I might have got that date wrong. So, you know, he was fearless, and eventually he did pay the price, but it did make him a martyr for his cause, and it certainly didn't stop his ideas from coming to fruition. And of course he could have been fearful. You know, he could have been fearful and just watched other people, you know, do adventurous things and not actually done it himself. So again, well done, Mr. Lincoln, for taking those steps which would have been scary and being fearless and doing it anyway. I mean, yeah, it got you shot, but you did walk your path, didn't you? So, you know, you really had walked your path of the 5 already. So maybe it was your time to go and be congratulated on the day that your life was taken from you. I don't know, another assumption, I think. So again, as a 5, you're here to focus your energy and drive, because remember, they can be quite scatty and unable to focus and scattering their experience and ideas in scattered directions. So 5s are here to focus their energy and drive onto their specialism with huge discipline to attain the freedom that they want to achieve for themselves and for other people, like Mr. Abraham Lincoln was trying to do. On the social side is the communication. Here to learn excellent verbal and written communication skills. Now, Mr. Abraham Lincoln must have stood on a podium. He was a very successful man, and a politician, so he must have been able to influence people with his words. And I don't know if he ever wrote a book. I didn't look up on that. But, you know, he communicated like Darwin did, slightly different ways. Maybe he did speak to the masses, Darwin, but mostly in his books, The Origin of Species, he communicated to people. But they both Abraham could have had stunted communication. Maybe he did sometimes get involved in irrelevant, dramatic and sometimes destructive dramas in his life rather than using his communication to create the news. So sometimes you would have thought that the war between the Unionists and the people that want to be the separatists, that could have been perceived as a destructive drama. So it's hard to know what's a destructive drama and what actually brings the change that needs to come. I mean, if you've got 2 sides fighting for power, something's got to happen, otherwise that tension will always be there. So you could say that he communicated and created destructive dramas, but he kind of didn't, because it brought stability eventually, because the Union was brought together, and finally, thank goodness, the slavery of human beings in the West was banned. I know it still goes on around the world, unfortunately, but you know, it created huge change in the Americas and in Europe as well. He was here to have excellent positive communicative social skills so that people listen to him and not be negative and wired and argumentative, And of course, to have the influence that he had, he needed to be a bit argumentative in order to stand his ground. But to bring others to his side, Abraham Lincoln must have developed that positive, charismatic social skills that I haven't really seen because I haven't researched enough. I wanted to leave it to the numbers, but again, I will look in and see what kind of speaker he was and if there are any speeches or things that he said that were iconic that would be really indicative of his life path 5. And of course, he was here to challenge others to be fearless like him. And boy, did he, because people went to war on the notion of keeping the Union. People stood up against the slave people and were abolitionists and risked their lives fearlessly to bring this change. And he helped others do that. He didn't stay stuck in fear, indulging in pointless drama and escapism. He got out there fearlessly. And he challenged others. He got others behind him and challenged them to be fearless too. And yes, it may have ended in him getting assassinated, but boy, did he walk his path of the 145 specifically, because it's the most significant number of his 145. It's the 4 that's the most significant sub-lesson of his 145. So to be the best life path 5 he could be in his incarnation, he needed to achieve his own safety and stability and security by following a planned process towards his goals, to be organised, structured, work hard and have a plan, to really focus and bring about the change he needed to bring. And it certainly wouldn't have brought him about safety. That was something he was still developing, and he was trying to create that safety and stability and security for people that were slaves, for people in America that would have been safer in a union rather than split into several states. So he was always focused and hardworking towards that goal, whilst being a leader and creating something new and unique and innovative with confidence. Boy, did he walk his path of a 145, hence how influential he was. So the 145 shows that he's an old soul anyway, because the 145 held a karmic debt. So in a previous lifetime, he may have been involved in situations where human freedom was abused. Now, that's not necessarily abusing others' freedom. That's abusing your own freedom by getting yourself locked up or doing things that cause yourself harm in the pursuit of freedom, if you know what I mean. I'll do what I want, eat what I want, and then kill yourself from a bad diet. I'll do what I want, rob banks, then end up in prison because you've wanted to get loads of money so you can be free, but you've ended up in prison because you went about it the wrong way. So in a previous life, that would have been the situation. He always wanted to be free, or the soul of Abraham Lincoln always wanted to be free, but in the past, he hadn't done this freedom thing in the right way, and he had ended up losing his own freedom in some way. So he learnt big lessons from that, and of course really emulated that in this lifetime, bringing himself his own freedom and of course the freedom of others. He would have likely have been a prisoner or a slave in a previous life, or ended up hurting himself from actions that he wanted to do that didn't bring him the freedom that he wanted, in fact may have injured him or even killed him. So in this lifetime, he's now forced to be adaptable, change to changing circumstances, and to bring about that change as well, to deal with unexpected events. The final one, of course, ended his life, but he would have had to have learnt to have dealt with unexpected events, things happening, and he needed to be flexible in the way he went about his work as a politician and, bringer of freedom for others. He had the potential of becoming a slave to his own freedom. He could have ended up, just doing what he wanted and saying, I just want to take drugs and drink alcohol and eat food and, just have loads of sex, and could have ended up having just a hedonistic lifestyle. He could have done that, but he didn't. And the key to transcending his 145 life path was commitment. And boy, did he have that. Boy, did he need that. And that is why he was as influential as he was. So he learnt from his past experience. He stayed focused on his goals. I don't know if he had to-do lists, maybe in his head or on lists. I don't know. He certainly saw his goals through to completion, developed in ways to keep himself on task, and he channeled creative new ideas, a disciplined approach. He committed and he followed through, which is exactly what he needed to do for his 145 life path. So again, he very much walked his path like Darwin did, but in separate directions. And the fact is, I think they knew each other, but they never met, Darwin and Abraham Lincoln. They were aware of each other and they knew of each other's ideas, but they didn't really meet as far as I know. So let's move on now. Right. I'm having a bit of a problem here. Let's move to the next page. Right, so birthday number 3. Okay, so here to develop positive verbal expression, to make others feel inspired. Well, boy, didn't they do that. Maybe Darwin did verbally, but more written. But Abraham Lincoln was a politician, and it was his job really to communicate to the masses, to inspire people towards change. So again, walking his path very well. He could have been quite shy in his communication. He may have even had language difficulties or barriers throughout his lifetime, but he managed to get past that. He was here to be creative, artistic in his expression. Now, I don't know how artistic he was. He may have expressed himself through art, or maybe just through his artistic words that he expressed to others that captivated his audiences. But he was here to make others feel good, inspired and entertained. But he could have had low confidence. He could have held himself back. He could have not done that at all. He could have hid in the background. He could have had not gone out there. He could have been scattered. He could have wasted his life really, but he didn't. He went right to the other side, and he was courageous, and he took intuitive risks, and he did. He had to learn to enjoy the limelight of an audience, to be the centre of attention when he was sharing his ideas about the Union, about anti-slavery, about his political ideas, and he needed to take action and execute his ideas in the world. But there was an element, and he had to be responsible with his ideas and the consequences of his actions. Now, the consequences of his actions, depending on whether you're a separatist or a unionist, will be questionable. But there is, stability in the US now that they're, with their union, I guess. But I guess there people that live in the States would say that there might be some unrest. There might be some states that would prefer to be separate from the federal government, but it's not as widespread and as big as it used to be, of course. But he needed to be responsible for the consequences of his actions, and unfortunately the consequences were that he ended up being killed. But he could have been really irresponsible. He could have brought ideas that were irresponsible and not really brought good ideas. But again, well done, Mr. Abraham Lincoln. You did a good job there. Your ideas may have brought conflict, and they may have even brought, war. But at the end of the day, sometimes upheaval needs to happen for stability and for people to thrive. And, as far as I know, apart from the little niggle, the US is thriving now, and they're not in civil war, they're not in unrest, other than any social unrest that bubbles under the surface. But all countries have that situation, don't they? There's always a bit of unrest bubbling under the surface wherever you go. And sometimes it's really influential, and sometimes it's just under the surface. And in the West at the moment, it tends to be pretty under the surface. I mean, we're not creating wars because of it. So he had to develop positive emotional expression that lifted others up, that inspired them. And of course he did that. But he may have at times been quite negative in his emotional expression, because the 3 energy can kick off. It can really, when it gets upset and annoyed, can be really cutting in the way it argues with others, and will argue ferociously. So he was a tough man in his communication, and he wouldn't have been afraid to argue his point. Here to be independent as well as interdependent, and engage in tasks that build his independence and his interdependence. Well, you could say that threes sometimes are prone to dependence, but I wouldn't say that Abraham Lincoln expressed that in any way. His tendency to dependence in his 3 birthday, though it's weaker than his 5 life path, this tendency, his the potential avoidance of commitment, was not there because he committed to his ideas, as we know. And again, he had double the need in the 5 and the 3 to be social, talkative, the life of the party, to be able to communicate his ideas and get people to listen to him. And his influence in the world says that he did just that, because he could have been shy and avoidant of social situations entirely. But again, well done, Mr. Lincoln, for not, and for being confident and rebellious in your communication, and being that opportunistic networker that snapped up opportunities as they arose, and really move forward with those ideas bravely. And of course he was born on the 12th, so the 2 energy, the most significant sub-lesson for the 1, 2, 3, you've got to serve intuitively other people's needs, which I think Darwin did. He used ideas to do it, and he maybe gave people a different way of thinking. And of course, Abraham Lincoln brought freedom to many people, and he brought stability to the US. He did serve other people's needs, even though he was a leader himself. He needed to intuitively serve people's needs, cooperate, build close relationships, and work as part of that effective team, and build a close-knit group that he could rely on for him bringing his ideas to the world. Develop those excellent social skills that we've talked about, and try and mediate the conflict that he creates with his ideas, and be a trusted advisor and a counsellor for others and people that are close to him. And that's the specific for him being born on the 12th. Same with Charles Robert Darwin. You must also have the confidence and independence to bravely express your unique ideas that bring change. Well, boy, didn't he do that. Like Darwin did, they surpassed their purpose. Hence them being well known and influential now, because they really got past all their challenges and difficulties and became the influential men that they were, because they were both visionaries of the ideal. Abraham Lincoln visioned a utopian world, and he wanted to act practically and compassionately like an expression number 6 to manifest his ideas on earth. He knew that our imperfect world was as it is, and he didn't just use our imperfect world to make him feel sad or use it as a benchmark for his personal unhappiness. He took action to bring change, to improve and make our imperfect world more perfect, to understand and accept the world as it is now as perfectly imperfect, but then creating progression from that, not accepting that status quo should stay the same, working forwards in order to bring change, which may have brought conflict and maybe bloodshed, but eventually brought stability and freedom to many people. He kept the big picture in mind as a talented 6. He acknowledged his successes and he learnt by his mistakes. And he was a positive nurturer, compassionate, caring and giving. So he would have been a great family man when he was able to spend that time with his family, especially to those that are vulnerable or struggling within their close relationships, family or community, and the wider world. So like Darwin, he was a family man, Mr. Lincoln. And, I haven't looked, but he probably would have had a wife and children that he nurtured, and would have, wanted and been good at taking the time he needed to nurture them when he could. He was artistic and aesthetic. Now his 3 birthday number brings the artisan in, and so does the 5. So he could have expressed his path in a very artistic and aesthetic, even musical kind of way. And maybe it was something he did in his spare time. Maybe he did paint. Maybe he did enjoy music. Maybe he was a behind the scenes creative artist and lover of the creative. Maybe he did collect art. Maybe he did love music. music? I literally don't know. But, if you do know and you want to comment to let me know whether he was artistic in his spare time, or maybe even if he used it to express himself to the masses, let me know on that, because I haven't looked that far into him, because again, I wanted to keep it to be all about the numbers. He had healthy boundaries on how much he'd do for others to ensure his own health and his own well-being. He was, like I said, caring, compassionate, very talented at that. He was quite a Papa Bear, really, to those he knew him, as per his numerology numbers. And he was an effective team player, worked with others, and he was quite fun and talkative to be around. He may have been shy sometimes at first when he met others, but when he got to know you, he was very quite fun-loving and relaxed around other people. And he was very able to create that stable, loving, tranquil home, like that Papa Bear, like Charles Darwin was, and maintain the stability and security and well-being up until the day he took a risk that got him killed. But we'll brush over that. Then nurture his family in an environment of stability and love. He was responsible in his ideas. I mean, they were positive and ethical. They would have brought conflict. All new ideas do. And he tried to do good for those he cared for and those around him. He brought freedom to a lot of people, or he was a tool that helped to bring freedom to a lot of people. And of course, stability in the United States as the Union was established. So he was a 156, so he best expressed the energy of his 6, not just in what I've just said, but also the fact that he was into varied experience, and he did have a passionate idea that he brought forward, that he specialised in with discipline, and then mastery, that he focused on, that he communicated with passion for his independence and of course the independence of others. So he really expressed that 5 in his expression number and gained personal freedom, well, not just for himself but for others too. He was already free, although as a leader of the US, you kind of wonder how free he would have been, because you couldn't really just walk the streets and do what you want. But he was using self-discipline to create freedom, not just for himself, but for others. So, and he advanced his specialism, his ideas, his passion for keeping the Union, his passion for slavery. And I know I'm focusing on those 2 subjects because that is literally all I know, but there was more about him, I'm sure. But, even in those 2 ideas alone, he was able to advance those ideas and be innovative and bring change. So again, he used, and the reason why he was so successful in his life path is how well he used his expression number, his talent, to help him take him down this path. And then of course he had a soul urge number 9, which wants to help others. Soul urge number 9s want to fix other people's lives. They want to bring well-being to others. They want to help people. And again, that would have really pushed him forward when it come to bringing his ideas out. So the soul urge 9, or Mr. Lincoln's heart, his happiness, his motivation, all came from the 9 energy. And he liked to prioritise his own intuitive ideas, spiritual wisdom and law on what was really right for the world, and choosing to focus on his own intuition and his own inner compass over what was going on in the world and the laws and the conventions and the ideals. So he did that. He used it, he followed his heart and went against worldly laws and conventions and ideals in order to bring change. He wanted to lead others by his positive, authentic example. He wanted to practice what he preached. He wanted to live to the wisdom that he taught. Did he not do that? I think he may have done. What am I talking about? He was driven to make his life his teaching. He liked to counsel. He brought his ideas with his intuitive inner wisdom and ideas that were ahead of his time. And that's what he wanted to do, and that's what he did. He chose to believe that we're all part of one energetic universe, just energetic souls experiencing in multiple lives, multiple bodies. So he would have known that, poor people of different races getting enslaved because they were considered a lower being. I mean, to him and to me as well, what an abhorrent thing to consider somebody of a different skin colour to be below you because they're a different skin colour. A Soul Urge 9 knows that we're just energetic souls experiencing lives in different bodies. Whether you were male or female in other lifetimes, you would have been different races in different lifetimes. So he had his Soul Urge 9 to bring that forward, that, we can't enslave these people. They're human beings with souls just like everybody else. And he wanted to bring that idea. He was driven to have that broad-mindedness, to be that humanitarian that he wanted to be, that was accepting of all people, regardless of their race, their gender, or their religion, or their way of life. And for that, Abraham Lincoln, I applaud you again. So he wanted to work towards being successful in what he did, whether it was business or entrepreneurship or influencing the whole country. And he must have been a business person. He must have had to dealt with and manage his money. He would have made a lot of money in what he did. And he made money, I guess, from doing what he did and from his passion for bringing his new ideas. So he wanted to work towards being that successful entrepreneur and business person that had a drive to market their passionate ideas and concepts with wisdom. And again, he did that too. You see, this shows that if you follow and really use your toolbox numbers, you can really achieve great things like this man did. He would have loved to have socialised, which supported his need to develop his social. So he loved to socialise and communicate with a wide range of people and influence with his higher wisdom. So that would have really helped his path, because he needed to be social and charismatic so that he could communicate his ideas. And luckily, he wanted to do that. You see how his heart and his talents have all come together, and he's used them to help walk his very influential and world-changing path. We can all do this. We can all try as much as we can to walk our path as hard as we can and use our talents that we've got, our karmic energies, our expression number, our soul urge number, our personality, even our maturity number, to really push us forward towards achieving great things like Abraham Lincoln did. He was driven to be a forward thinker, to have ideas ahead of his time, choosing to move on from past issues and progress from it and try and bring change, to wrap things up, to complete, to let go, move on and bring change, and not let the status quo bring him down, but, to actually step forward to bring that change bravely. He wanted to do that. He did that, and he developed his talent towards a maturity Master 11. And the energy of the Master 11 brings world healing. Again, his ideas, the things that he did in his lifetime brought an element of healing to this world. It stopped us and started us on the path towards treating people of all races and genders as equal. I know we're not perfect yet. We still have, in the US, UK, all over the world, we still hurt each other from being a different race, religion, gender. We still downtread women in some countries, not our country, thankfully. We still, hurt people of different races. We're by no means perfect yet. But Abraham Lincoln had developed that mastery, that he knew that we needed to heal ourselves as a whole. The developed talents of an old soul, really. Highly intuitive, empathetic, perceptive, even psychic. Now, he saw his unique ideas as a gift, because that's what he'd matured towards. And he knew that his ideas were very healing for the entire world. Hence, he really used his maturity Master 11, because he brought healing on a wide scale by illuminating people with his new ideas and making people change their mind and bringing the change that he knew would bring healing to this world. Boy, he was a Master Maturity 11 as well, wasn't he? I mean, a creative, nurturing leader, a healer with a keen sense of interdependence. He knew that we weren't all separate beings, that we're one energetic energy, and that we needed to heal ourselves and each other and needed to work together, not discriminate against each other, not treat each other awfully. And I know sometimes change brings about war when people have got different ideas, but he was about, especially as he hit his mid-30s onwards, about bringing healing, and he was developing that throughout his lifetime. He always wanted to bring healing with his ideas, even though at the start it would have brought warfare from warring peoples. But sometimes that needs to happen. We need the positive and the negative to create development and evolution. Sometimes, unfortunately, those things need to happen. And human souls, they learn a lot from war. We develop and learn a lot from war situations. So even though they're horrific, huge development takes place because of conflict and war, and quite healing change. And that's what Abraham Lincoln brought. He had healthy boundaries, though, to help him balance his responsibility to others with his own needs. Because, of course, he had a family as well. Excuse me. But, of course, he brought, as I said, as he matured, his expression 6 turned into maturity 11, which was even more about service and healing towards other people. His personality number 6, so he was a talented 6 and he came across as a 6. So as I said, he was a talented Papa Bear that was compassionate, looked after people. He was a big picture visionary, a dreamer. He wanted to make the world a better place, did Abraham Lincoln. He had an idea of the utopian ideal, and he had full acceptance of himself and the others and the world as it is now, as perfectly imperfect within a virtual reality school of light and dark experience. But he knew that he could take practical action and communicate in order to bring that change that was closer to his utopian ideal of everyone being treated with respect, no matter what their gender, and everyone coming together in union, like he brought together his country, so that we could all work together as one. So that was his idea, and he brought that. And he was a compassionate, socially competent nurturer, as I've said multiple times. Excuse me while I scratch. Thank you. Sorry about that. Team player, sensible advisor, talented creative artist with healthy boundaries for his own well-being. I know eventually he got shot, but these things happen when you haven't got enough security around you. And nowadays, your American presidents have huge amounts of security around them, and you know why, because of previous assassinations. Karmic intensifier, it was good. Because he was a 3 before, he had a karmic 3. It made him better able to express himself to others, even though he may have had some issues in his early life, maybe not, because he was only a birthday number 3. His karmic 3 intensifier and other energies in his chart would have made that a little bit better. So he may not have struggled in his younger life with as much shyness as he would have done if he didn't have this karmic 3 intensifier. But his karmic weakness is the 5 and the 9. But he's literally bought the 5 as his life path, and boy did he walk that. So he's brought these 2 numbers in this lifetime to help him deal with those karmic weaknesses. He's brought his 5 as his life path, and as you can see, the 9 is soul urge. So he's made it what he really wants. And if we want something enough, we can actually develop that energy and manifest it on earth. So he brought his karmic 5 and his karmic 9 to this lifetime, and again he's really done a good job with his chart in his lifetime. Even though it ended tragically, the guy had literally walked his path with success and brought about the change that he needed to bring about. So a very influential man, and I'm going to do more research into this man, because he's one of those, like Darwin, that walked his life path, he walked his life purpose. He used the tools in his toolbox all together, and he created something great from that. And that is something that we should all aspire to do when we look at our own numerology charts. What am I here to do in detail, and how can I use every element of my talent, expression number, my motivation number, my maturity, my developing talent, and even my personality, my talents from previous lifetimes? How can I use all that in my toolbox to help me walk and achieve my life path amazingly and bring change with my ideas, or whatever it is you have to achieve your life path, and we should all aspire to looking at our chart as a whole, walking our life path and using all those toolbox energies to help us achieve it. Hello everyone, and how are all my YouTube and podcast viewers today? So today I have some exciting news. Yesterday I uploaded all the information, and this morning my new book has gone on sale on Amazon. Now this is called Remember Your Life Plan. Now this isn't part of the advanced trilogy that you're still awaiting the last book for. This is a beginner book, and it's for people to have a bit of a grounding before they start looking into the detail of my deeper books. So one of my best friends wanted copies of my Remember Your Life Purpose and Remember Your Talents. Now, I didn't really think about it, but she hasn't really got much knowledge or grounding in numerology. So she said, and she was really worried about offending me, but she doesn't realise that feedback is so important to everyone. And we shouldn't take it personally. We should take it as inspiration to do better. So she said, I've got your Remember Your Life Purpose book and your Remember Your Life Talents book. Thank you. She got it because she was my best friend more than anything. But she don't have much of a knowledge in numerology. But she said, no offence, I don't get it. I don't understand your books at all. Now, she was worried that, oh, I'm really sorry if that's offended you. Absolutely not. What that actually did was inspire me to do a beginner book, which is a lot shorter, just over 200 pages, that gives you all the structure and grounding before you start trying to go deeper and analysing the life path and birthday number and analysing it with the expression number and the soul urge number. That's going deeper. That's more for master level people. So I'm excited to announce my beginner level, which shows you all the number energies and how they express themselves depending on where they are in your chart, so that by the time you start reading Remember Your Life Purpose or Remember Your Talents, you have a grounding that you will fully understand what you're reading. Now, first of all, Remember Your Life Plan. This is my brand new one. So it's for people that are beginners in numerology. It provides a grounding for newbies. It shows all the number energies in a personal chart, and on a shorter, laid out sort of shorter, so you can really see which energy is and how that expresses as it goes. It explains all the number energies by position. So if a 3 is your life path, how does that express itself if it's your life path? And how does it express itself if it's your expression number? How does it express itself if it's your soul urge number? How important is it depending on where it is in your chart? This is all the grounding that you will get in Remember Your Life Path. And it's just over 200 pages long. And by the time you've read it and really worked out your chart and really got into the words in this book in depth, you'll be totally ready, if you so want to move on to the more deeper, more detailed books. So it explains all the number energies by position, only 200 pages just over, so it's a nice easy read. Or if you're not really a bookworm and you'd prefer to learn audio visually, then you can take my Foundations of Numerology Practitioner on Udemy. That covers the same things as my book does, minus the archetypes. Or you could do both if you prefer. It's up to you. But it's this book and the Foundations course that is for you if you're a beginner in numerology. Or if you prefer, you could have one-to-one personal tutoring to become a numerologist, or to manage your life and your own life purpose. So then my Remember Your Life Purpose, which was the first book I released, I was quick to jump on the number blending books because that was what I felt was needed the most. When I was studying numerology all those eons ago when I was a young'un, what got me was it was just explanations of the numbers in isolation and hardly any blending, because there's a difference. If you're a life path 6 with an expression 5 or a soul urge 2, you're much different from someone who's the same life path but has different talent and motivation numbers, because you've got different abilities, different characteristics, different personality. So this all needs to be blended together. But as I've learned, this is a higher level skill. So after you've read Remember Your Life Plan and you want to go deeper, you consider yourself more as an intermediate in numerology, then Remember Your Life Purpose provides a deeper analysis of the lessons, challenges of the life path, challenges of and jobs of the life path number and the birthday and the life path number, if I can get that right. It's a concise list of all your priority and your secondary life purpose tasks that you must achieve in this lifetime. And it breaks it down a little to give you a bit of a deeper understanding of your life path and your birthday number. And it's a longer and more detailed analysis for potential numerology readers or just people that want to understand their chart on a much deeper level. And again, you might prefer audio visual, and then if you've done my Foundations course and you've read my beginner book, or you already have a basis in numerology, then you could take my Master Practitioner for readers, which is where we start to and really blend all the numbers together to see how they all work together, because not all life path 6s are the same. They have different life path sub lessons, and of course they have a different toolbox. So there's much to be said and much that needs to be taken into account when it comes to looking at the numbers and blending them together, not just looking at them side by side. And the same with Remember Your Talents. Now this one, whereas Remember Your Life Purpose focused on your life path and your birthday number, your purpose, your challenges, your tasks for this lifetime. This book again is for intermediate learners because it's part of the more detailed trilogy, and it provides an analysis of the lessons of the life path but compares it with your talent number, your biggest and most influential talent number, which is your expression number. And it's a lesson by lesson comparison of the talents, of all the talents in your expression number for you to see how easy or difficult at the beginning each task in your life path and birthday number will be compared to what talents you brought with you in your toolbox. And again, it provides a bit of a deeper understanding for those that already have a grounding, and breaks down how the purpose number, the life path especially, compares with the talents that you have already in your expression number. And it's a longer and more detailed analysis for potential readers and people that want to go deeper. Again, this is a Master Practitioner level book, and if you're at that level, you should do the Master Practitioner course on Udemy. And again, if you prefer, you can have one-to-one personal tutoring if you prefer. Now, the book that isn't out yet, the book that was delayed due to me being inspired to do my beginner book, is Remember Your Motivations, which focuses on the soul urge. Now, I have the title, I have the subtitle, I don't have the cover art yet up on the system. I know what the cover art is going to be, But again, this is remember your motivations, focusing on the soul urge. And it's for intermediates in numerology, and it provides an analysis of the lessons of your life path. So your life purpose. So everything needs to be compared to what you're here to do. Your life path and birthday number, life path especially, otherwise what's the point? So it's your life path breakdown against your soul urge motivation. What drives you? A lesson by lesson comparison of how driven and motivated you are to learn each individual lesson of your life path. Again, it provides a more deeper understanding and a breakdown of what elements of your life path you're going to be more motivated to do and what you might need a bit self-discipline in order to achieve. And it's a more detailed analysis for people that want to be a reader for others or want to go into their chart a bit deeper. And again, on Udemy, it would be the master level practitioner course that you would find most useful. So just to finish off, for an in-depth personal video numerology reading from me, send me an email or contact me on social media, and I can do you personal Zoom readings for an hour or 2 hours, or even shorter than that if you prefer, with a PDF written reading. And it's an opportunity for me to meet up with you one-to-one to really connect with you and your chart and help you find direction for your future. Or if you want an ongoing one-to-one service, like a reading and then like monthly short meetings where we can see how you're getting on and how you're doing, then click that button on my YouTube channel and join. And if you live in the UK or you're visiting the UK in the near future, I also do Mind, Body, Spirit shows all over Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire, a few in Berkshire, with Dear Spirit events. So if you want to find and book a place, look for Dear Spirit events online, and you can come to one of our events for a personal reading from me, or just to say hello and maybe purchase one of my books, because I'll be there personally to sell it to you and we can say hello. So these are my 3 books. I'm really excited about Remember Your Life Plan because it's brand new, it's for beginners, and it's going to stop the confusion that some of the purchasers of my other 2 books have had, but when they're not at the level that they need to be. And of course, Remember Your Motivations is being frantically worked on right now because I want to get them all out as soon as possible so that you have a really full-on comprehensive way to learn numerology using my books. Now, if you want to contact me on social media, send me an email, just request a video, ask me questions. Up to you. Contact me at katie@soulexplorer.net, or you can view me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn or Twitter. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and I hope you enjoy my brand new book. See you soon.